Number 30, public safety, approval of amended enforcement hours for the red speed school zone enforcement program. We better not be here for a while. This is approval of something we discussed last week ad nauseum, somewhere around midnight. Ms. DePaul.
Correct. I have a brief presentation to give if you so choose for me to do that.
If what now?
If you would like me to give the presentation, I have a brief
Does
presentation.
anyone need a presentation on this? We discussed it pretty in-depth last week.
So do you want to just, I'll just give a quick synopsis really quickly. We can
Well,
go to
the motion, just to clarify to everyone, in case they do or do not want one, and there's already a motion made by Commissioner McCann and seconded by Commissioner Seek. The motion is to approve the amendment to the enforcement times of the school zone cameras to within 30 minutes before through 30 minutes after the start and the end of the regularly scheduled school zone. Effectively, during normal school zone, posted school zone hours would be the only times that our cameras would ticket people for speeding over 10 miles per hour. That was the discussion of the board last week that I believe was either unanimous or closely unanimous in favor. And this is just staff and Mr. Paul bringing back the motion to formally approve that.
At that reduced speed limit in the school zone, correct? So it would only be.
Not a reduced speed limit, reduced time of which we're enforcing speed limit. That's the next item you're referring to.
We will only be enforcing whatever the reduced speed limit during the school period, so that hour in the morning and the hour in the afternoon,
Yes.
correct? Within that time frame.
Correct.
Yes.
And I have Commissioner Bearden on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so just kind of evaluating this whole 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. There are specific school zones where there have been major accidents and children have been hit and things of that nature. So I don't know if we could do a traffic, collision, which school zones have had the most accidents to where maybe we need to reevaluate that portion, not make it across the board, but like if there's specific areas where there have been some major crashes and maybe kids have getting hit on bikes or whatever it might be, we might want to recalculate kind of what we do here in regards to that. I don't know. What is the board's opinion on that?
Sure. I mean, in theory, there may be some schools with a higher level of truancy where kids are ditching out in the middle of school and getting hit by cars.
Just kind of influencing the people to maybe slow down, at all times, because maybe it's a, specific area where there needs to be more road construction or whatever it might be.
May I add
Sure.
one piece of clarification?
Sure, then I've got two commissioners on the board, so what's your clarification?
We have signage currently posted in the speed limits that say the hours of enforcement from that 30 minutes before school all the way through the end of the school day. And so a recommendation, if this were adopted, would be to keep those signs the same that indicate enforcement all day long. Because, ideally, there could also be MSO officers that are ticketing people. They have the right to ticket people in school zones as well. And so we potentially just wouldn't change those signs in the camera enforced zone.
Okay. Commissioner? Sure, no, it's a valid point. Commissioner McCann?
This will come up with the next motion also, but the thing is that I spoke to the sheriff, and he said that this would be very safe. The other thing is that there are crossing guards here at this time. There are actual people there that are assuring the safety at this. The only thing that's changing on this is you're not having an unfair surprise and taking, ticketing people, when the lights aren't on and they weren't aware that the cameras were still snapping. When we had the red light cameras, we took them off for privacy issues. And, again, these are privacy issues now because they have nothing to do with child safety. Our child safety is the most important thing. I talked with the chairman of the school board, and the chairman of the school board says there's a lot of people confused over, all the variables that are going in on this. And, his take on this, again, was child safety. And, he felt that these times would be, very appropriate because, that way they can explain to all the children, the school guards know, all the teachers know that this is exactly what they're doing at those times. Now it's, kids aren't just released from the school and said, go home by yourself. I mean, if there's something at the school that they have an emergency or something like that, they call the parents to come and get them. So, this has been vetted through the sheriff's department, this has been vetted through the state, this has been vetted through, the Department of Motor Vehicles, and, this is exactly what they're saying, would be safety, and it would be in conformance with the law without putting any child in jeopardy. So I just want to make certain that, everybody knows that. This is just not an outcry from, people saying we want, we don't want. This has actually been vetted through all these agencies.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ron.
All right, walk me through this. So the flashing lights are on, the school zone's 15 or 20 miles an hour. Flashing lights go off. What this is amending is that the speed limit, it can go to, we're not gonna ticket anybody who moves 70 miles an hour through the school zone once the lights are off. Is that correct?
So let me talk about what's currently happening and then what would be proposed to happen. So,
I'm trying to understand the intent of the statute,
yeah,
so.
so currently, we are now issuing violations for anyone going 11 miles per hour or more over the applicable speed limit in that school zone, which starts 30 minutes before school starts and then goes throughout the entire day, 30 minutes after school ends. And so in the middle of the day, when the flashing beacon is not flashing, you would get a ticket if you were going 11 miles per hour or more over the posted speed limit in the middle of the day at that time, not the school zone reduced
Yep.
speed limit, but the normal one. So what this would do is this would amend it and say that from within 30 minutes before school to 30 minutes after school, both the start and the end of the day, so that hour in the morning, hour in the afternoon, you would be issued a violation if you were going 11 miles per hour or more over the speed limit. Now, the one change, we had to get from Public Works a list of all those flashing beacon times. Those times are not, many of them are not an entire hour in the morning, an entire hour in the afternoon. For example, many of them in the morning start 30 minutes before school and only go to 15 minutes after the start of school. But we would only, and this is why the motion is to be within that 30 minutes before to 30 minutes after, because in some school zones, we might only be enforcing and issuing tickets for the 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes. But we are going to time them at the same time as the flashing beacon. We believe that that was the initial intent from the last meeting of the board's direction, the motion that was made.
Okay, so I believe, at 3 PM on a school day, if somebody's going to 40-mile-an-hour zone, they're going 55, they're gonna get hit.
Say that again.
If someone, in the middle of the day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon of a school day, the posted speed limit's 40, someone's going 55, the camera will hit them and they'll get a ticket.
Correct. If it's during that
Window,
that window where the beacon is flashing, then yes.
okay.
Now and in the future.
Yep.
Because that would be during that afternoon time where the beacon is flashing.
Yeah, that was a terrible,
Yeah, that was a
3
confusing.
o'clock was a terrible option.
I know, but.
Clearly, he doesn't have kids in the school system.
I think the intent of the statute is to discourage bad behavior during the school day, from the time the school opens to the time the school closes.
Yeah, and-
And I believe that was the intent of the statute when it was written, somewhat vaguely written, but I think that was the intent, is to discourage bad behavior from drivers in front of a school, blowing through a school zone, even though the lights aren't flashing, but during the times that the schools are open. I mean, that's what I believe the intent of the statute was.
So if this motion does go through, I just wanted to say on the record that we could implement this as early as 12:01 a.m. tomorrow. So any ticket that was issued until then, since this motion won't be passed until today, would still be valid. Again, if this motion were passed, then we would implement this effective tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Siddiq.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank staff, Public Safety Director, everyone really involved with this to really act with speed and efficiency. I appreciate that. When I first started getting letters, physical letters and mail on this particular issue, I thought, no, you guys are speeding. You deserve the ticket. But I had to put aside my biases when I started just seeing the sheer volume of this and just hearing from residents, and then they're personally seeing some of the challenges this statute's created for us and some of the problems with that contract as well. Great example is if you go out 53rd Avenue, there's a Detweilers. I like going there. But you take that left turn going westbound, people can get hit. First of all, no one knows that's a school zone until after you get hit by the cameras. The signage is not even consistently placed throughout the county, and that just leads me to question how consistently it's been placed. I mean, I don't think anyone I know of, really, or people that constituents I've been speaking to, no one goes out of their way to speed in a school zone. I think when most people go through a school zone, they slow down, and we obviously want to catch the bad actors, and I think we are during the school times. The argument that kids are running out of school in the middle of the day, I don't believe it. I mean, our school district has done a tremendous job ensuring that kids aren't playing hooky in the middle of the day, and if they are, then I think that's something that the school district should be looking into, not necessarily the county and securing their facility. But I have a number of problems with this contract anyways. I think we're being overly generous to one vendor. I mean, honestly, we could have just ripped this contract up and really started this with community workshops, given the scale and magnitude of this issue. We're not city of Bradenton. We don't have a handful of streets and school zones. We have the whole darn county to address here. So I appreciate all the work we're doing to assess the timings, the lights, the flashing, when it's not flashing, the weird in-between periods. This is disproportionately affecting a lot of working-class families as well, and not just from the perspective of school safety, but look, I've lived paycheck to paycheck. $100 is a lot, and contesting it where you have to potentially lose and pay $500, that's insanity. And I think we can do better to ensure there's transparency around signage, still enforce the school zone speed limits, but ensure that we're not just making a profit off of this and not showing real data to support this. The challenge it had was barely, when the bill was, the ink on the bill was barely dry, we already had a contract ready to go and then approved it, and we had no study. I talked to staff, I talked to you guys. I didn't see any data, and you didn't have any data from Manatee County that showed the depth and significance of this problem. I don't like just implementing a mass surveillance program without data, and I think this has kind of become that. I talked to our sheriff. I've spoken to a number of families, constituents. I've received a lot of calls. More people want to get rid of this. I wouldn't say go that far, but I think this is a fairly sensible solution in ensuring that we are catching the bad actors. And I believe, generally speaking, this board should consider more broadly roadway design and ensuring safety. I mean, if you have a straightaway without a speed bump or a sign, people will race anyways. You have to design a roadway to ensure that you disincentivize it. And I think a great example is I was able to get some speed signs out in Harbor Hills just recently. That, studies have shown that significantly increases the awareness of one's own speed and incentivizes them to slow down. If things are so bad, you get a speed bump in. I just think we have to be more holistic in addressing this issue. Cameras are one strategy. I don't see the data yet showing it's working, at least from Manatee County, not a vendor selling me on something. So I'd just like to see this particular motion, I think, addresses the issue. I'd certainly love to see some data to back this up. And again, I think we're being overly generous to one vendor on this, but I appreciate, again, your speed on this, so thank you.
Commissioner Ballard.
Yeah, just really quick, I think that overall, the solution that we're proposing is the right one because it's narrowly tailored to the actual problem, which is keeping kids safe as they're coming into school and going out of school. You kind of have to have a little bit of a balancing test between, allowing a little bit of privacy for people when there's a very low chance that kids are actually going to be going in and out of school. But during the times when kids are entering the school, when kids are leaving school, it makes sense to have enforcement. Now, that being said, the amendment of the enforcement times, I don't know that what we're doing now aligns with what we're proposing aligns with the statute.
So
What we're proposing to do, to change to right now, I don't know that it aligns with the statute.
this language was taken directly from the statute, and the reason why I had to do an amended motion, and I don't know if maybe you're looking at the last meeting's motion, the last meeting's motion said it needs to be in alignment with the flashing beacon times, and
Right.
that is not how the statute is written.
Correct.
The
So-
statute's written within, and so it says within 30 minutes before through 30 minutes after the start and the end of a regularly scheduled school session.
Correct.
So if we do it anytime within that hour, that would be in alignment with the statute.
Okay.
And so the flashing beacon, just to be clear, some schools have a breakfast session. This gets very convoluted, so I don't want to
Yep.
go into, but Some schools have a breakfast session. We are not including a breakfast session in this based on what we took the direction of the board to be last meeting. So sometimes the beacon will be flashing and we will not be enforcing with the camera enforcement because we don't do it during the breakfast session. So it would only be starting at the 30 minutes before school and then up until the 30 minutes after school starts. And I'm just using the start of school for an example. But if that beacon turns off, let's say school starts at 8 o'clock.
Correct.
The beacon turns off at 8:15. We have the ability to enforce until 8:30 by statute, but we will instead stop enforcing at 8:15.
Okay, so what you're saying is our ordinance is going to be written to align with the statute, but in reality, once the flashing light turns off, we will stop enforcement.
Yes. And we've
Okay, I think
spoken-
that's defensible. I understand what you're saying now. That works.
And we've spoken, we'll have this all documented in a spreadsheet. And then one thing we've been working with the county attorney on is perhaps following this with a resolution that codifies all of this. We don't need that in effect per se to have this take effect immediately tomorrow, but then we will be working the back end, just making all of this
Okay.
as clean as possible.
Like Commissioner McCann.
I talked to Sheriff Wells, and he said specifically that he would like nobody to speed anywhere in the county. And enforcement is for that purpose. The statute itself says here, I have a copy of the statute for anybody that wants it. It says such speed limit may be enforced only during those times 30 minutes before, during, and 30 minutes after the periods of when pupils are arriving at a regularly scheduled breakfast program or a regularly scheduled school session and leaving a regularly scheduled school session. One thing to understand is that a school, you know, a school zone is a physical location. It doesn't roll up at night. It doesn't go away. It's there all the time. What we're looking at is enforcement in the school zone and how to protect child safety. The intention of this is nothing more than child safety. You know, it even says, you know, from the DMV that's their main thing. It's not to catch speeders. It's not to be there off time. Again, you know, if we were going to do that, we would leave the cameras on all night long because the school zone is there all night long. It doesn't go away. So I think it's very important to understand that, you know, what we're doing here is in conformance and worded right in the statute. We're not changing anything in the statute. And again, the statute does supersede, you know, a lot of things that we have, but we can make an ordinance, you know, if it's reasonable. But again, times and speeds, you know, we can't change, you know, anything over what they have for parameters. So that's what we're saying here. Do we need to be giving tickets to anybody when it isn't in the best interest of the child protection, just because they may be going more through a speed limit? And again, you know, I understand the example, but nobody's going to go 70 miles an hour through a speed zone, you know, that has a 30-mile-an-hour limit on it. And if they do, they can get caught by the police. That's the purpose of that. But the thing is, you know, we got rid of those red light cameras just for that purpose. And, you know, we aren't there to, you know, monitor or change behavior. What we're there for is to protect the child's safety during the school zone period. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be quick. 'Cause, I think Commissioner McCann said most of what I was going to say. If we're justifying these cameras in the middle of the day, why don't we put cameras on every street in this entire town and monitor everybody 1 mile over a speed limit every place, and you roll to a stop at a stop sign? I'm not living in that world. I'm the one who made the motion to get rid of the red light cameras. Like, there's a time and place for these things, but they always end up being a money grab, and this is no exception. You know, the statute clearly states that we may implement these. It doesn't say we shall implement them. It gives us the option, not the obligation, and a previous board, I voted no on it, but the previous board voted to do this. And then we added this long period in the middle of the day, which disproportionately adds to the revenue stream, which benefits almost everyone but Manatee County, to take money out of people's pockets in our county and ship it out someplace else. If you want to treat this as safety for kids, fine. I'm okay with that. That's why things that have the words kids in them get approved. So I'm perfectly fine leaving them on during the lit hours. You don't see a whole lot of speeding during the flashing lights anyway, because traffic is usually backed up for about a half a mile trying to get through one of those during drop-off periods. But nonetheless, if you do, then you do have an option to do it. I would caution everyone not to keep using the word flashing lights, as I discussed yesterday with staff. Flashing lights do not necessarily connotate the speed limit zones. The zones are the zones, and the lights are just to alert you to them. Sometimes those lights aren't working, and that doesn't alleviate you from speeding through them on posted times. But I'm perfectly fine getting rid of. You can get rid of all of them altogether for all I care. But I'm perfectly fine leaving them on during the blinking time. But it's just common sense here in the middle of the day. This has gone on too long already, so I'm on board with this. Anyway, I do not have any commissioners on the board. I will open this up to public comment. Nobody's on here, so it's kind of first come, first serve. It's who's ever fastest.
Manatee County, Andrew Griffin, activist, advocate. I'm not going to have the popular viewpoint of this board. I'm also one that worked to get rid of red light cameras in this town. When you guys presented these cameras, I came up here and told you that your data was flawed, because the majority of children that are hit in this community, in any community, happens after 5 p.m. at night, not during the day. I said, when we were up here for the first time, this was a money grab. I didn't go for it, but I was the worst person in the world because it's for the children. That's what sells a lot of stuff in this county. It's for the children. It's for the children. I'm a common sense person. I travel all over this country protecting children, putting myself out there for the sake of the children. So when I hear things, if it benefits the children and I think it's going to be beneficial, I'm going to stand up here and say we need to do it. But I have been adamant that this is ridiculous. Why? Because children aren't getting hit in our school zones in the mornings. They're getting hit in the school zones they're getting hit in their own home communities in the evening after 5 p.m. Then we've got the lights going off during the day, charging people. It is absolutely a money grab. And not only that, I would like data on how many children have been hit in school zones, specific school zones, and during our specific school times. That's what I want to know. Where are that? We don't have any of that data. We made this decision without that data. And now people are being charged this. I don't like red light cameras, but I think that the red light cameras need to be reduced for the times that the children are outside of the schools only. And anything else needs to be handled by Manatee County Sheriff. If somebody's going through there at 70 miles an hour, that's the responsibility of our Sheriff's Department. We pay our Sheriff's Department lots of money to protect our streets and to make sure that most of our crossing guards are manned by the sheriff. I further stated in that meeting that with all the lights, the officers and everything else, and children possibly being hit, do you know one of our children got hit in a school zone after these cameras were put in? After, but not before. They are not a deterrent. They are a money grab. That's why I am adamant that these are not good for our community. So again, I understand it's a feel-good thing for parents. We have a camera in those I feel great as a parent. But what are they really doing? They're not a deterrent. If the officers and the flashing lights are not deterrents, do you think a camera is going to be? I'm just saying, common sense. Thank you and God bless.
Good.
Well, since I stayed up all night worrying about this, and I know some of this is going to be redundant, and everybody knows me in here, I'm just going to go through my spiel. My name is Liz Gabrick. I'm a concerned constituent in District 5. The signage and lack of signage before and in front of Terra Elementary is misleading, confusing, and clearly broken. In reference to last Tuesday's meeting, it was my understanding the speed limit enforcement via the speed camera in a school zone would not be enforced when yellow lights were not blinking or outside normal school hours. Obviously, that was not the case, as citations have been given outside these times. Clearly, no unity of speed and lack of signage is present. The citations written clearly show the confusion and the misleading. I brought some photos showing going westbound on Terra Boulevard and Terra Preserve. There is no signage saying even what the speed limit is, all the way to the end of the school zone where then there's a speed limit sign. So there's not even a speed limit sign. So I brought these photos. Okay. That? Should I? Oh, sorry. So this is at Terra Preserve and Terra Boulevard, and that first sign is 241 feet from the stop sign when you make the turn. Then you go through this stop sign, and then you can see the school on the left, and then you go all the way down through here. You can see about where that car is on the left is where the camera is. You go all the way down here, you see an end of school zone, and then you see a speed limit sign. So that is that. But what I wanted to also say is that out of the 1,491 citations that have been issued at Terra Elementary, how many tickets have been paid? Well, we could call Susan Hall from River Edge Community, who she sent in her money and paid her ticket. They said they never received it and sent her another ticket for $206. And Diana Mathewson, she can get in line. The same thing happened to her. Peggy W., same thing happened to her. And then we've got Margot Ryder, who she's fighting. She received 6 tickets. She's fighting all 6 tickets, sent in the 6 tickets. They sent back 2 tickets, charging her the additional $206 because they said they only received 4 of the 6 tickets that she's going to fight. So now she's incurred more expenses. So you tell me, broken or not, where is the accountability? If safety is the primary goal to protect and reduce speed, why not have the flashing lights on during the hours? I know, I gotta run on sentence.
Go ahead.
I can run that sentence on.
Go on. Lots of, all right, you can finish. You can finish your sentence. Make sure there's lots of semicolons.
Oh, I don't know which one to pick. Safety has gone out the door and revenue has gone through the roof. Don't mislead the community by confusion of signage and lack of transparency. The clear motive of the safety concern is called into question.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a race.
I beat you at the podium. For the record, Glenn Giblina. 1, I think this is a terrible contract. And 2, I speed all the time. I really do. But when I come in the school zone, I go down to the speed limit of the road. And when I see the flashing signs, it's 15, 20 miles an hour without fail. I think most people that see the flashing signs, they put on the brakes. The ones that blow through, they deserve the $300 ticket, as far as I'm concerned. But I will tell you, this ticketing outside we're doing, and the billing on that is terrible. That needs to be stopped. So as long as they're flashing, it's the only time the camera should be on. If they're not flashing, then all bets are off. And I will tell you, if you do that, and by the way, every school district's different. You got the lunches, you got this. It should be up to the principal to say, look, we're an elementary school, we got 150 kids, cars are in and out of here in 15 minutes. Well, that's when you need the flashing lights on. Or you go to Bayshore High, hey, we got 600 students, it takes 45 minutes to get the cars through here. That's the time it should be those flashing lights. It should be up to the principals of the school. They know who's crossing their sidewalks more than anyone else, or Florida statutes or any of this. So design the flashing sign, the flashings, only when the flashing's on, and design it for each school. I don't know what the big deal is. So that's my 2 cents. And 50 years of driving, I never got a school ticket, so I'm ahead of the game.
Joe McClash. First of all, thank you for having this issue brought up because it's been frustrating to a lot of drivers out there. I think you should give people their money back that are outside of the flashing hours, because I think it was very misleading when this board approved it. I don't think the statute was followed, because the statute did require a study. There was no real study that was on that agenda that day. And when you look at in front of King Middle School, where I was this morning driving through, you have one sign that says fines double when flashing, and then there's another one that says speed limit enforced during school hours. So are you not going to enforce the speed limit when it's not during school hours? I mean, that's a ridiculous sign. And there's nothing about 30 minutes before or 30 minutes after. So I think if you just went to the minimum of ticketing people when the lights are flashing, then you achieve the most safety for your children. Not that it was really a safety issue to begin with, because you didn't have a study at any of these locations that said that you had safety issues, which was required by statute. So if you want to get technical, you really should throw out the whole darn statute and start it over again. But I think you're paying 33% of the monies, Commissioner Sadiq, to the red light people, I think is what they're doing. So every $100 they make $33. That's a lot of money. So anyhow, I would appreciate the reduction of the hours, but I really feel that there was no study done to make this a legal ordinance.
Anyone else in the room? Seeing no one. Is there anybody on the phone?
No hands are raised.
All right, I will close public comment. I have two commissioners on the board. I'll remind you, it's almost 11:50. We're not leaving for lunch until we're done. We still have 3 items left. I think we've talked about this in depth, so I'd appreciate anything new to add to this conversation. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Commissioner Bearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Mr. McClash's comments. I had getting complaints in regards to holidays and weekends, why they were getting these tickets. So can we make an executive decision on this board today to say, hey, you know what, we'll give you the refund if they were issued a ticket on the weekend or any holiday?
The statute only allows us to issue violations in accordance with the certain time stipulated. They are only on scheduled school days. In the presentation when this contract was initially approved, we clarified that we would not do enforcement on weekends, anytime that the school is not in session, to include summer school. So if someone has received a ticket at night outside school hours, on the weekends, on a school holiday, in the summer, which we haven't gotten to the summer yet, this is the first year, they are to contact public safety if they're not getting an answer from Red Speed. We will address that concern. These enforcements are pre-screened by Red Speed, then they go to the sheriff's office to be screened again. Then the violator has the ability to appeal it through magistrate. But again, if they have a concern and they don't want to go to magistrate, contact us directly. Jody is happy to address every situation separately.
All right, so, I mean, I feel as if we made a lot of mistakes in this process. Should we just start over? And then if anybody, because I know there was a time frame where, we were doing this test model and nobody was going to get tickets. We haven't, as a county, gotten, and as a board, figured this whole thing out. Now it seems like we're getting closer and closer to that. Should we start over and say, okay, if anybody got a ticket, we'll issue out a refund moving forward?
I'd
And then say,
hesitate
hey,
for
you
that
know what,
since
we're
we
going
don't
to
have
start
all
all,
the money.
go ahead.
I was saying, we don't have all of the ticketed money. $33 of it's going to Red Speed unless they're refunding it. I mean, we don't have all those funds to refund. I mean, I think what's done is done in the past. I'm not adverse to what you're
the
saying, though.
agreement-
I voted no on this.
Yeah, well,
It
what
was on
the
my bingo
agreement,
card that I wanted
that's
kids to
beside the point. I mean, moving forward, we're talking about how we fix a solution today. How can we fix a solution now? So,
Yeah.
you think that
I got the substitute
Red Speed
motion.
would, work with us on that?
I think we should amend this motion, to be honest with you. I think, not to take your time, Commissioner Bearden.
Yeah.
frankly, I just can't stomach the thought of Manatee County just making money off of this. When I inquired about where the funds are going, this isn't a special fund, as far as I'm concerned. It goes into the general fund, is that correct?
Not quite. So the funds by statute have to go to a variety of different places.
All right,
Red
so, I
Speed
remember,
makes $21 of our $60 that we collect. The other 40 go to different funds. Some goes to the crossing guard program. The funds that we do make, so the 60 minus the 21, so $39 we make on every ticket to Manatee County must be spent on public safety initiatives only. So that funding has been going to public safety. I don't know that we've used it or allocated it toward anything. I think we had discussed perhaps using it on replacement of the two lifeguard shacks to get temporary shacks. So anything that's public safety related. But we have not spent any of those funds yet.
I really think people would prefer to have food on their table rather than whatever on the beach. And I just can't stomach the thought of just having folks, and granted, this affects everyone across all economic classes, but I mean, we collect $60, out of every $100, we collect 65. There's a portion of that, 33%, that goes to certainly Red Speed. School district gets some funds, the state gets some funds. I don't control any of what those guys do, but we get the lion's share of the funds, and I think it only seems fair that Manatee County, and I'd like to amend that motion, to at least identify with this change that we are making to the enforcement, identify all the tickets that fall outside those new parameters and just refund those folks. I think that's a fair compromise.
Yeah, I mean, I still have the floor.
So that would be very challenging.
I'll allow Commissioner Deek to take it, but I still have the floor when I get a chance.
I apologize. I would have to have some more time to look at that before I'm prepared to discuss what the impact of that would be or how that would work.
We need to have a discussion with Red Speed and ask them, hey, you want to come on up?
We have Greg Parks from Red Speed here today to answer
Yeah.
any technical questions.
How you doing?
Good, thank you, Commissioner.
good.
Thank you all. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Would you like me to address one of those questions you had? Or do you
Yeah,
want to ask
sure.
me
I mean,
specific
I
questions?
think we probably need to have a conversation. I think we approached this in a way that wasn't, detailed. And so now we're in this situation where we have a lot of constituents that have gotten tickets. And so I'm asking that maybe we can come to the table, and I know that you guys got a certain percentage of that, but this is a partnership, right, with the county. So we got to make sure that across the board that, we're making sure that we're doing right with our constituents as well at the same
No, I
time.
understand. That's your job, to do
Yes, sir.
right by your constituents,
So
all seven of you.
what can we do?
Oh, Greg Parks.
What
Apologize.
can we do with some of these tickets that have been issued? I know that, like I said, you guys got a certain percentage of that. And then moving forward.
Well, I wanted to address one of your specific concerns
Okay.
that I am very confident is not happening about the nights, the weekends. Those absolutely will be refunded, and we would make a charitable contribution to that constituent's favorite charity in addition to the refund that occurred. Because as the Deputy County Administrator stated, we have two humans review it, then a sworn deputy is reviewing it. I'm not personally aware of that ever happening anywhere, and if it is, we'll do more than what you would expect. That's the one thing I'd like to get on the record.
Okay. Commissioner Sadiq, I'll remind you, and I do appreciate you coming here, Mr. Parks, and once we take lunch, I'm sure some people wouldn't mind asking you some questions.
Yeah,
offline.
absolutely.
I'll remind you, the discussion at hand is whether or not we're going to be ticketing during the hours, not the global concept
No,
of the
sir, I was
Red
just
Speed
trying to address
contract at this point. Nobody's been briefed for that. No one's been anticipated for that. I appreciate you being here, and it's great to give some insight, especially the new commissioners who are on the board, but let's at least stay focused within the confines of the motion at hand. Commissioner Sadiq. And I do have a motion and a second
Sure.
on the board.
I think that's a discussion we should continue to have. As far as this motion is concerned, I think let's go forward with this, let's get on the right track, and then have those discussions at a later point. Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only reason why we're having that discussion is because the gentleman is here. And so we have the opportunity to have that discussion while he's here to really, see what we can do about our constituents at this time.
I don't disagree, that's why I gave it some leeway, but we do have a motion on the floor, and that was starting to veer off from the motion, and I think all of us would need to be better briefed to have an intelligent conversation about that. So I have nobody on the board. I've got a motion by Commissioner McCann, seconded by, she's off the board. Second by Commissioner Sadiq. You can cast your votes now. And that passes 7-0. Item number 31, the last non-Commissioner Sadiq item on the agenda.
So Chad Butzo, Public Works, this one technically is exceptionally quick because it was we're trying to keep things on the agenda, being on a 1-week turnaround, and I believe is duplicative of Commissioner McCann's commissioner item of what he wished to discuss.
This is? I thought this had to do with the 15 miles or 20 miles an hour, which is wholly separate than the previous discussion about.
And then the only thing I would love to say, and I know we've talked about it to death, 2 statutes that we're trying to work together. School zones, long-established settled science, tells you how to do it, how to market, and 15 or 20 miles an hour. Along came a year or so ago, another statute that allowed you to radar photo enforce that. They tried to bolt those together, and then that's where all this stuff came in. So there's rules for how we sign a school zone, and then there's rules how you sign a school zone if you have cameras. So that was where a lot of confusion came in place.
I don't think there's confusion, however, unless I'm mistaken, number 31, which looks to be your item. This had to do with whether or not to make uniform speeds within all school zones in Manatee County, whether or not we have cameras there. That's just muddying the conversation.
I was asked to keep it on the agenda, and somehow I got it under mine and not under a commissioner comment. I was trying to help
Commissioner McCann, this was
Commissioner McCann.
your item last week. Is this a conversation you want to have today on this agenda?
Yes, it is. Because again, the safety of the children is important here. The statutes are 316.1892, and that authorizes us to make a minimum or a maximum speed on a road. 3.16.1895, Section 5, empowers us to make it a speed limit that does not exceed 20. I talked to the school board about this, and I'll just read it right out. Whereas the safety of our children and community members is of utmost importance, whereas recent studies and data suggest that a uniform speed limit of 20 miles per hour can maintain safety while improving traffic flow and reducing congestions around school zones, whereas the Florida Department of Motor Vehicles in the American Safety Council Guide states, in pertinent part, that school zones around Florida schools, the speed limit is 20, whereas the Manatee County Sheriff, a constitutional officer, and the Chief Law Enforcement of Manatee County supports a uniform speed limit of 20 miles per hour to enhance safety and efficiency, and whereas the school board has been consulted and concurs that a constant speed of 20 miles per hour provides safety and consistency throughout the school district, I'm moving at this time to make all speed zones 20 miles per hour.
Yes, sir.
All right, I have a motion and a second. I'm trying to see. I don't have anybody on the board. I have Commissioner Ballard. I'm honestly a little confused because it seems you're reading an ordinance.
I rewrote it for an ordinance purpose, but again, I'm just going to move it if we can do that. But,
Well, I'm
I
just
wrote
saying because
this-
that ordinance isn't even, an ordinance is an ordinance. That's, you can't just pull that out of your back pocket and vote
No,
on
I'm
an
making it,
ordinance.
I'm using it for the motion, is what I'm saying. If it needs an ordinance, which I believe now it doesn't, then, I'm just making the motion to do it because we can do it by statute.
Because this isn't listed as your item, nor is that ordinance or any draft.
I asked
of
that it be listed as my item last time.
Yes.
For some reason, it got put under public safety. They were just supposed to do a study to see if 20 was feasible, but it was my item, and, I said, make sure it's on the next agenda, and it didn't get put on the agenda under me.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. I apologize, though.
For clarification, if you mind, it was late at night. I didn't have staff in the room. We got into this discussion. I had staff look into it. I had the option of putting it under Public Works or the commissioner's item. I decided to put it under Public Works.
Okay, fair enough. Commissioner Ballard.
And so, just so I'm clear, Public Works has had the opportunity to look into this. Our school board partners have had the opportunity to look into this. They're comfortable. the sheriff's office is comfortable. I'm very comfortable, and I think that it makes sense for uniformity throughout the county. I think that it's at a level that provides for child safety, so I'm in complete agreement. Thank you, Dr. McCann.
Thank you.
I have no one else on the board. I will open it up for public comments. Do you have a public comment about this particular item? No? Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the phone, so think about it for a sec. Anybody on the phones?
No hands are raised.
All right, last chance. You good?
I'm supposed to talk on the next one.
Okay. There is no next one. There's not. Oh, are you from New College? No, okay. I will close public comment. And I still have no one on the board. I have a motion by Commissioner McCann. I have a second by Commissioner Bearden. You can cast your votes now. And it is approved 6-1 with myself in dissension. And honestly, I've just never voted to increase the speed limit. Last week I mentioned we should make them all 15 miles an hour, but I'm fine with the motion that was made. Okay,